The Great Forest Talent Show. Soft morning light fills the forest. Birds sing gently, and a warm breeze stirs the leaves. Today is a special day, the day of the Great Forest Talent Show. The Great Forest Talent Show. A story about friendship, laughter, and the joy of sharing. The Great Forest Talent Show. The forest is stirring with anticipation for the big event. Every creature knows this day marks celebration and community. The stage is set for a day filled with unforgettable performances. Once upon a time, deep in a bright and peaceful forest, a gentle breeze carried the sound of laughter. The sun filtered softly through the leaves, painting golden patches of light on the forest floor. It was the day of the Great Forest Talent Show, the most exciting day of the year. Laughter begins to echo faintly through the majestic towering trees. The air feels alive with happy expectation. Golden light bathes the leaves in a soft, welcoming glow. Anticipation builds for the yearly celebration of community talent. The forest inhabitants are ready to share their skills and enthusiasm. The beautiful natural setting enhances the joyous mood. Every corner of this bright wood is anticipating the fun ahead. The most exciting day of the whole year is finally here. A feeling of pure, unadulterated happiness permeates the air. From the tiniest ant to the tallest giraffe, every animal was buzzing with excitement. They had practiced their songs, their dances, their tricks, and their paintings for weeks. Now, the big clearing in the middle of the forest was decorated beautifully. It was decorated with shiny leaves, sparkling mushrooms, and garlands of colorful petals. Benny the bunny hopped around happily, interacting with the preparations. "Come on, everyone," he said cheerfully. "Let's make this the best show ever." Other busy paws and wings quickly move in the background. The excitement is palpable as the final touches are applied. Tiny ants were observed carefully maneuvering small, shiny pebbles into place. Benny the bunny paused only briefly to survey his successful handiwork. The setting is perfect, glowing under the morning sun. Every detail suggests the care put into making the day special. The atmosphere radiates communal effort and joyful anticipation. Benny the bunny gave one last enthusiastic nod, signaling readiness. Lila the ladybug fluttered past, her red wings gleaming brightly in the sunlight. "Don't forget to smile on stage, Benny the bunny," she called, giggling. The laughter of Lila the ladybug echoed briefly before she flew towards the stage. Polly the parrot perched high above the stage, ready to announce each act with flair. Her bright plumage seemed to absorb and reflect all the morning light. Gary the giraffe stretched his long neck, meticulously hanging decorations from the tallest branches. His long neck allowed him to reach places no one else could manage for the final touches. And nearby, Nora the nightingale hummed softly to herself. Her gentle song blended perfectly with the natural sounds of the morning breeze. The stage area now looked fully prepared, a natural masterpiece. All performers waited in their designated spots, ready for their cues. Gary the giraffe finally stepped back to admire his high-up decorations. The final check was complete. The forest was hushed in expectation. Lila the ladybug practiced a small, quick spin on her petal perch. The stillness magnified the gentle humming of Nora the nightingale. The air grew thick with the sense that something wonderful was about to happen. Polly flapped her bright wings and called out, "Welcome, everyone, to the Great Forest Talent Show." A huge cheer rose through the clearing, full of energy and delight. Birds chirped loudly in approval from the upper branches. Squirrels clapped their tiny paws together with vigorous enthusiasm. Even the usually quiet frogs croaked their delight from the damp edges of the clearing. The great show had officially begun, vibrant and loud. Polly the parrot smiled, satisfied with the massive turnout and positive reception. The air, moments ago serene, was now electric with excitement. The cheers slowly subsided, making way for focused attention. The anticipation for the first performance hung thick in the warm air. All eyes turned expectantly to the spot where Lila, the ladybug, was about to appear. At Lila, the ladybug fluttered onto a big yellow flower, ready to begin her performance. She began to dance, her tiny feet moving lightly across the soft petals. Her red and gold wings shimmered wonderfully in the strong morning sunlight. She twirled and spun like a floating jewel caught in the light. The audience watched with captivated silence as her routine peaked. The fluid motion was mesmerizing to all the forest inhabitants. The routine finished with a delicate, final bow from the tiny performer. The crowd erupted instantly with loud clapping and appreciative cheers. "Bravo, at Lila the Ladybug," shouted at Benny the Bunny from his spot nearby. "That was beautiful," he added, beaming with pride for his friend. At Lila, the ladybug took a small happy curtsy in response to the praise. Her performance set a high, joyful standard for the rest of the show. The stage was cleared quickly for the next act to prepare. Next came at Gary the giraffe, ready to display his artistic talent to the assembly. He dipped the very tip of his long tail into a pot of vibrant blue paint. With gentle, colorful strokes, he began to paint the forest scene. He deftly alternated colors, creating the rich greens of the tall trees surrounding them. The audience watched quietly, amazed by his unique artistic method. He painted all his friends smiling together in the heart of the mural. The mural captured the essence of their peaceful woodland home. At Polly the parrot swooped closer to offer immediate, enthusiastic feedback. "That's wonderful, at Gary the giraffe," she exclaimed. "You've painted our home perfectly." The animals cheered loudly as the vibrant mural seemed to glow in the golden light. At Gary the giraffe dipped his tail for one last flourish, adding a bright sun detail. He then stepped back slowly, allowing the crowd to fully appreciate his landscape. The artistic display concluded with sustained admiration from the audience. Then it was at Nora the nightingale's turn to enchant the gathered assembly. She took a deep, visible breath, spreading her soft, dark wings slightly for support. And then she began to sing, releasing a stream of pure, sweet melody into the air. Her song drifted through the air, sweet and calm, like a perfect lullaby from the trees. The forest grew completely still, hushed by the beauty of the melody. Even the nearby river, usually bubbling loudly, seemed to slow its water flow to listen. When the last, lingering note finally faded away, total silence reigned for a beat. Then, warm, heartfelt applause erupted, filling the sudden void of sound. "That was so peaceful," at Nora the nightingale said at Benny the bunny softly. "It felt like the whole forest was singing along with you," he continued. At Nora the nightingale smiled shyly, accepting the praise with humility. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible after the applause. "It makes me happy when my song brings such calm." The peaceful transition back to sound was as beautiful as the music itself. The momentary tranquility lingered in the air. At Polly the parrot prepares to introduce the next more energetic act. At Milo the monkey swung down from a vine, landing with a cheerful grin right onto the stage. "It's my turn," he shouted excitedly, bouncing slightly on the stage log. He began to tumble and flip fluidly, showcasing acrobatic skill. He then started juggling 3 large, freshly gathered pine cones with incredible speed. The little ones in the crowd laughed heartily as he used his tail as an extra juggling tool. One pine cone accidentally dropped low, but at Milo the monkey seamlessly caught the falling cone with his tail tip. "Ta-da!" he cried triumphantly, finishing his routine with a dramatic flourish. The crowd responded immediately with cheers and loud, sustained clapping. At Milo the monkey took a deep, theatrical bow, his grin unwavering. He winked it at Benny the bunny before swinging back up to the vines. At last, it was at Benny the bunny's turn to step into the spotlight. He looked down at his props, 3 bright orange carrots carefully laid out before him. He felt his heart begin to beat significantly faster in his chest. "What if I drop them?" he whispered fearfully to himself. At Polly the parrot landed gently beside him, offering quiet support. "Don't worry, at Benny the bunny," she said kindly, her voice steady. It's not about being perfect, it's about sharing your joy, she reminded him gently. Inspired by her words, Benny the bunny took a slow, steadying deep breath. He looked up at the expectant crowd and managed a small, genuine smile. He picked up the first carrot, then the second, and finally the third. Toss, spin, catch. The crowd, sensing his focus, began to clap softly in rhythm to encourage him. As the rhythm took hold, Benny the bunny relaxed and his throws became smoother. He tossed one carrot high, spun underneath it, and caught it perfectly on his ear. The quiet encouragement from the crowd fueled his growing confidence. He was successfully keeping all 3 carrots airborne, feeling a surge of relief and pride. Suddenly, a massive, unexpected gust of wind whooshed violently through the clearing. The force of the gale caught the airborne carrots mid-toss. The carefully balanced act collapsed as the carrots flew wildly in different directions. One carrot sailed high and landed with a soft thud directly on top of Gary the giraffe's head. Another carrot bounced off a decoration and rolled near Lila the ladybug's flower. The third carrot disappeared completely, vanishing into a thick, shadowy bush. For a split second, the entire clearing held its breath, a collective gasp echoing. Then, surprisingly, Lila the ladybug broke the tension by starting to giggle. Milo the monkey reacted instantly to the scattered food. He dashed after the flying carrot, performing impressive flips and cartwheels as he moved. The sheer absurdity of the situation caused the whole forest to burst into roaring laughter. Benny the bunny stared at the scattered carrots, realizing the pressure was momentarily off. With one final flourish, Benny the bunny caught the last carrot cleanly. A roar of triumph and happiness erupted from the entire audience. Polly the parrot flew down, landing beside him with an excited squeak. "You did it, Benny the bunny," she cheered. "I knew you could." Milo the monkey and Gary the giraffe rushed forward next to join the celebration. "Amazing control, Benny," boomed Gary the giraffe from his great height. Milo the monkey playfully bumped shoulders with the relieved bunny. Benny the bunny felt the anxiety wash away, replaced by pure, shared happiness. He looked over at Lila the ladybug and at Nora the nightingale, who were also smiling brightly. The true talent, they realized, wasn't just the performance, but the friendship that made it possible. The crowd cheered one last time, declaring it the best talent show ever. Shaking off his shock, Benny the bunny hopped into action to corral the runaway vegetables. Polly the parrot swooped swiftly through the air, aiming for the carrot perched on Gary the giraffe's head. Gary the giraffe carefully lowered his head, trying not to drop the accidental prop. Nora, the nightingale fluttered low over the ferns near the shadow of the bush. "I see it. It's tucked right under this big fern," she called out softly. Milo the monkey, having secured the rolling carrot, tossed it back towards the main action with a wide grin. The chaos had transformed into a synchronized recovery mission, filled with humor. Polly the parrot skillfully nudged the second carrot off Gary the giraffe's head, guiding it down. Benny the bunny dashed over and secured the second carrot just before it hit the ground. Nora the nightingale bravely fluttered out of the bush, carrying the third carrot delicately in her beak. She flew directly to Benny the bunny and dropped the carrot safely into his waiting paws. Finally, Benny caught the last carrot and held all 3 aloft in a moment of triumph. The crowd erupted in fresh, louder cheers of approval for the recovery effort. "You did it, Benny the bunny?" shouted Polly the parrot from above. The sun began to sink low, painting the forest in hues of soft gold and vibrant pink. All the animals gathered together in the clearing, their hearts overflowing with shared happiness. Polly the parrot addressed the group warmly, reflecting on the day's events. "You know," she said, "I think this was our very best show yet." Gary the giraffe nodded his tall head in solemn agreement from the crowd. "It wasn't just about the talents," he observed quietly. "It was about how we helped each other out there." Nora the nightingale hummed a soft, contented melody, her voice blending with the evening breeze. "When we share joy," she said gently, "it spreads like sunlight through the trees." At Milo the monkey clapped his hands together loudly, already planning for next year. "Next year, I'll juggle coconuts," he declared with boundless energy. Everyone around him laughed warmly at his enthusiasm and ambition. The day concluded on a high note of togetherness and mutual support. The moon began to rise, a gentle silver disk above the highest treetops. The silver light filtered softly down through the leaves, illuminating the clearing in cool tones. Had Benny the bunny looked around at his gathering of supportive friends, he saw the kindness shared during the scramble for the carrots and understood completely. He felt his own heart glow with a comforting warmth, a feeling deeper than any successful performance. He whispered quietly, sharing his realization with the peaceful night air. "The greatest talent of all is sharing joy with friends," he concluded. The cool forest breeze rustled the leaves above them. The sound seemed to mimic soft, satisfied laughter lingering from the day's events. From that night forward, the talent show was cemented as a cherished tradition. It became a yearly fixture centered around laughter, kindness, and unbreakable friendship. The forest settled down, knowing that community spirit was their true victory. At Nora the nightingale offered a final, soft farewell note carried by the cool night air. The memory of the day's teamwork lingered warmly in the peaceful quiet. The forest slept, dreaming of next year's shared joy. The end. The moon rises high above the silent, dark treetops as the forest settles into calm. The gentle sounds of crickets and rustling leaves replace the earlier festive noise. Laughter still echoes softly on the night breeze, a gentle reminder of the day. Happiness truly grows when it is shared among true friends, like those in this community. And every year, under the same silver moon, the friends of the Great Forest will come together once more. The Great Forest Talent Show. Written and narrated by Your Name. Inspired by the spirit of friendship and joy. Featuring the talents of Lila the Ladybug, Gary the Giraffe, Nora the Nightingale, Milo the Monkey. Special thanks to Benny the Bunny for sharing his journey. Animation and direction, Forest Critters Team. Music by the Gentle Breeze Orchestra. The visuals fade slowly to complete darkness. Gentle crickets and soft night music underscore the final moments. The sound of a single, contented owl hoot echoes once. Quiet rustling leaves sound almost like whispers of farewell. Peace settles over the great forest. The end of the show. The next morning, the sun rose gently over the silent, empty clearing. The memory of the wonderful, shared celebration warmed the air more than the rising sun. The Great Forest Talent Show was a success, not because of perfect acts, but because of perfect friendship.